Hello, my fellow Earthlings. I wanted to share a few words with you guys today just on all the stuff that's going on. I've kind of spent the last 3 or 4 days with participating in it, to be honest, and participating in kind of the collective unconsciousness of all of it and feeling what that was about, and now kind of moving more in towards the conscious aspects of things. And I just wanted to share a few words about fear and uncertainty and how this pandemic is playing out, and really kind of pressing in on some of that fear and uncertainty that we experience as human beings, and kind of exacerbating it. It's putting it under a microscope, and we're experiencing that in the collective, and it's creating us to experience that in ourselves. So I want to touch base on this and maybe unpack some of it. Give some strategies on how we collectively can work through some of this stuff and support each other, rather than spread more fear across the collective. Okay, so a quick update on myself. I'm in Vietnam. I've been here for the last 4 weeks, and believe it or not, there's actually statistically it's safer here than it is in Canada and the US. So Canada, I believe, has 300 cases now. Vietnam has 53. There's not a lot of fear here. There's not a lot of panic. People are just being very precautionary, wearing masks, doing the things that their government is telling them to do. So I just, being in social media and seeing how it's playing out over in Canada, it's very overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me. So I can't imagine what it would be like to be there and be overwhelmed by seeing all the fear and feeling all the fear, right? So one thing I want to point out is that everything happens with purpose. Okay, that's the first thing we need to understand. A pandemic happens with purpose, right? Everything in this life that's created has a purpose behind it. So when we start to look at it without purpose, we start to feel victimized. And it's important for us in this process to understand the purpose behind why something like this is happening. Think about the collective vibration of our planet, right? Mother Earth, this giant, beautiful planet, has been inundated by pollution and all sorts of crazy energy and greed and all this stuff. And she herself, the Mother Earth, needs to take a collective breath, just like we need to just pause in our lives and take a breath, right? This is an opportunity for Mother Earth to pause and take a breath and stop this cycle of abuse that the planet has been under, right? So it's an opportunity for this to occur. We are part of this planet. We live on this planet. So it's important for us also to have that breath. So we're going in quarantine. We're going through social distancing. These are things that allow us to go within and practice some of the things that we tend not to practice, because we live in a world that's inundated with all these things, greed and pollution and technology and all these things that are basically taking us away from feeling our interdependence, and we become overly independent. So it's interesting in the fact that we're actually going through an experience where we're experiencing interdependence and how strongly connected we all are, but yet we are being asked to practice independence, right? And go into ourselves and start to practice just being in our own energy. This is an important aspect of this. If you look at things with purpose, this is a very, very important purpose of this. So how are you going to spend the next month or two while we're doing, the quarantining? Are you going to use it by just spending all your time on social media and spreading fear and spreading hate and anger and taking your uncertainty and fear and projecting it outside of yourself? Or are you going to sit with it, right? And start to transmute it and work with it? So that's really an important aspect of all this. And I want to break down the two things I want to talk about is fear and uncertainty, because these are the two biggest things that are happening in our collective vibration right now. Everybody's feeling fear. Everybody's feeling uncertain about what the future has in store for us. So if we can break those two down and get a some understanding about them, we can start to work with that. So fear, at the end of the day, always it's going to express itself a lot of times in anger, right? And when I'm going through posts and I'm reading people's stuff on social media, it's so overwhelming because everybody is just spreading this anger, this real tightness, like everybody's holding on so tight, and then all of a sudden it just explodes out. And we need to really get that in check, because all we're doing with that is we're spreading more and more hate, we're spreading more and more fear through anger. And that's one of the worst ways to receive it, is from somebody else, is when it's projected at you with anger. So before you post something, before you share something, get honest with the intention behind why you're doing that. Are you actually doing it to inform people, or are you actually doing it to spread the feeling that you're already feeling inside of you because you want others to join you in that experience? All that does is create fear mongering, right? We need to be very, very present with ourselves before we act in the things that we're acting in our lives, because otherwise we're just doing it from a place of unawareness and unconsciousness, and we're creating more of that in our experience, right? Because when you are feeling fear and you put that out into the universe through projection, it cycles and it just comes right back at you, right? So if we want to actually transmute our fear and transmute our anger, we need to actually sit with it, work with it, and then we need to share the makings of that work with others and help create calm and presence and all of these things that we want to actually cultivate more in our interdependence, right? The fact that we're all connected in this beautiful way. Okay, uncertainty. Uncertainty carries an undercurrent of anxiety, right? Uncertainty is all about living in the past and living in the future, right? And we're taking things that we felt in the past and we're projecting it into the future and saying we're going to create more of this. So when we go through a pandemic, we start to anticipate the future and what the future might have in store. And we're actually taking the fear that we're experiencing on social media and through other people, and we're projecting that into our own future, thinking that we're going to be the next one that's going to, contract coronavirus, and our family's going to die, and we're not going to have enough food, and we're perpetuating all of these thoughts, right? These are all possibilities in your experience, but why are we focusing on the possibilities, the negative possibilities, when everything is possible? So my best advice is going to just be present, right? I wrote my book on presence. It's all about present moment awareness, so people can actually learn how to be present in their experience. If you're not in past, you're not in future, you're in the present moment, and you're not worrying, you don't have fear, you don't have uncertainty, you're just able to be present and you're able to observe, right? So if you can develop that skill to be able just to, even if you want to be on social media, great, but be present while you're doing it. Don't just project all this stuff into the vortex of Facebook and then think it's going to make things better. So be very present with what you're reading, what you're absorbing, and what you're sharing, because that's going to have a big part and a big impact on how you experience this pandemic, right? So be present is number one, and be compassionate. We need to understand that we're in this collective together, but we all feel quite isolated in it. So if you see somebody suffering and you see somebody struggling, be compassionate for that. And be compassionate when people are projecting their anger and their fear at you. Because if you're throwing your fear and anger back at them, it's perpetuation. We want to end it. So sometimes the best way to do that is just to disengage. Sometimes the best way to do that is to engage with compassion and love. And know that we're all experiencing fear, and at some moments some of us are going to feel stronger than others, and some of us are not. So we need to just be mindful of that and try and be compassionate with one another in this process. That's really all I have for you guys today. And again, one of the best things that you can do too is just be mindful of how much expectation you're bringing in to everything, right? As we go through this quarantining stuff and our government and all this stuff, what are the expectations that you're bringing into all this? Because one of the things we want to be mindful of is, where can we bring more appreciation into the things that we have, right? So you're being quarantined. A lot of people don't want to be at work and they want to have time to themselves. Well, now you got it. A lot of people want to spend more time in bed in the morning. Well, there you go. Now you got it. So appreciate what this experience brings for you, instead of looking at it like bringing in expectation and feeling like you don't have any control. Look at the things you have control over, and look at the things that you can appreciate. And I'm telling you, your whole world will change when you start to count your blessings, as opposed to looking at the things that have been taken away from you throughout the course of this next month or two, however long this is going to go for. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. People love to read the comments and people's things. So, share the love, share your thoughts. What are you doing in your time to make things better for you? I love to hear about what you're doing that's making your life more fulfilling and happier, okay? Sending lots of love as we navigate our way through this, but I promise you this has a great purpose and we're gonna come out stronger because of it.